Hello, friends. Welcome back for another episode of the Wizard Factory podcast. Tonight, we're joined by guest Ryan Bowditch. And Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. Pleasure to be on here, brother.
Absolutely, man. Would you like to say a few words to sort of introduce yourself and let people know who you are and what you do?
Yeah. Well, who I am is a little bit more complicated, but what I do is...
Put yourself in a box real quick for us, Ryan.
For sure. Nah, I like playing the box game, man. It's fun.
Yeah.
So what I do is I take people on transformative retreats. I do online coaching, and I am very an avid Muay Thai practitioner, jiu-jitsu. I love surfing, big into yoga, basically anything that allows me to experience life from a more embodied viewpoint. That's what I do, and I try to teach my clients the same.
That's a great way to put that, man. Yeah, that's awesome, and definitely some commonalities there, philosophically. So, and that's kind of what we're looking to get into a little bit tonight. So, the title of tonight's talk is "Let's Get Weird," where we'll be unwrapping the present. So, obviously, right there, we're hinting at the fact that the present moment really is the highest and most precious gift of life itself. Brian, would you like to take that and carry it a bit?
Absolutely. So the Web of Weird that some of our viewers may be familiar with already is referring to in the mythology of the Norse. Understanding there are three giantesses known as the Norns, and their names are Wyrd, which is that which has been, you could view it as the past, Verdandi, which is the ever becoming present moment, and Skuld, which is debt or the future. And how the understanding works is that, every action and choice that you take in Verdandi, the now, is instantly becoming Wyrd, the past, which is reflecting a debt that you will experience. But you're going to always be experiencing it as the now. So there's only ever that present moment, that time to really step into that. If you want to create a past and a future that you really want to have be your story, you have to take that action in the now. So that's kind of a short summary into that. So it's really, this whole episode is going to be about stepping into that present moment, stepping into the power of the now, and taking action towards, what you want to achieve.
Right. So, Ryan, do you have some, you want to add on that introductory idea?
I love the idea of, and it's really a really important one, that everything we experience is always experienced from the now. I think that's really easy to forget that there is no experience without being right here. Even the thoughts, even the ruminations, even floating away in the clouds, you're still always in your body. And I think there's a lot of comfort in that. There's a lot of comfort in knowing that, man, if I'm still breathing, if I'm still sitting here talking to you guys, my life is okay. No matter how much perceived stress is out there, it's just an illusion.
What's that bringing up for me there, Brian, imagining this, it's the web of weird. It's being woven. And I picture this imagery of sort of a braid. So think of when you braid someone's hair, it's three strands where they're seemingly separate, you past, present, and future, but they're all kind of interweaving, and at some point it becomes one thing, and that separation is an illusion. So I mean, that seems like a good allegory for it.
Absolutely. So when we had chatted a little bit before, one of the kind of the big things that came up for us that the ways we rob ourselves of the present moment is staying in the victimhood mindset. And Ryan, I know this is one that you like to talk about. Would you like to kind of riff on how, that staying in that victimhood mindset is just only keeping you disempowered, and you're really robbing yourself of, what you really need to come back into the present moment, and embracing it from an empowered place of being?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the first phrase that comes to mind is everything's happening for me, not to me. I say that to myself a lot. It's real because I mean, you can look at it one of two ways. Either things just happen to you, you're a victim, you're just a reactionary force with no intentionality and no control, or you have full power, full ability to decide and to make meaning out of things in life. And so, man, I think about all the stuff that, while it was happening to me, felt really bad, felt really scary, felt really, fucked up. And then when I have perspective and I can look back, it's like, oh man, that was actually incredibly beautiful because it got me to where I am now. And then the other thing got me here, and this and that. And you can just look at all of life as one big opportunity to grow. I mean, even the hard shit is just a chance for growth. So
Right.
to be a victim means you have no power. Everybody's doing this to me. Society, my race, my privilege, right? All these different things that people will label at you depending on how you look or how you talk or where you're from. All of these things are more of an influence on your life than you are. And I just think that narrative is such bullshit, man. And, I come from a single mother, deep poverty. I mean, I remember one Christmas we rented a movie and bought a bag of M&Ms, and that was our Christmas, right? And like, I was a high school dropout. I had all of these things that you could say were bad things happening to me, but quite the opposite. And I look back then, I'm like, man, I see kids that didn't have to struggle whatsoever. Their lives aren't ones that I'm trying to emulate. The people who have been through the struggle and grown from it, those are the people that just blow my mind. Specifically Navy SEALs. I'm obsessed with reading Navy SEAL literature because they are the most empowered people ever because they constantly put themselves through things that make them grow. So to be a victim is not in my energy.
Mm-hmm. No, what it brings up for me is that, especially a lot of times, like when people are stuck in a victimhood mindset, for example, like if they're staying stuck in the past, because of, some trauma that they experienced or whatever that is, and they keep thinking about this. But one of the things they do is they're constantly reiterating to themselves what their story is, and how they're looking at it, how they're energetically reacting with what that event was. And, I think that was something good that you're hitting on there is you can choose to shift and change how you're interacting with those experiences, and whether you choose to take it as, that experience happened to you or that experience happened for you as a way of giving you a challenge so you could grow through that.
Yeah, like I kind of see it as you're taking on that role of becoming the alchemist where, no matter what life hands to you, that's raw material that you're just going to take that and transmute it into, no matter what it is, transmute that into something that you can actually use as energy, as, fuel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Joseph Campbell
That's being
says, use your
empowered.
shadow and eat it for fuel.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that, I kind of wanted to bring up here is that, whenever we're not taking action towards, whatever we want to achieve, we're not taking action towards bettering ourselves, we're kind of by default taking actions, and making choices that aren't leading to that growth that we're really wanting to see. So if you say you're really wanting to grow, like you have to start stepping back into the now and taking action like in every moment. And it's not just this black and white thing, like a light switch. It's this continuous process of having to choose and take action and choose and take action, even when you encounter a lot of that adversity and challenge, because that again, those are the tests that are going to allow us to be able to dive deep within ourselves and discover parts of ourselves that we may not have known were there.
Right. Because like what we keep coming back to is choosing to do nothing is still a choice. So even if you think you're, absolved of your responsibility by just that, again, with the victimhood is another, manifestation of that, of just not doing anything and letting life just blow you all over and just be, oh, woe is me,
Awesome. You have any thoughts on that real quick, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this the other day, but you know, one of my heroes is Jocko Willink. He's a Navy SEAL commander in the Battle of Ramadi, and his whole philosophy is extreme ownership, and that goes hand in hand with transmuting the victim mind state. It's like when you just decide everything is my fault, all of it, man, everything. It's just 100% my fault. And what I mean by that is, okay, yeah, I'm walking down the street and I get robbed. Was that my fault? Maybe, maybe not. There's a lot of things you could look into about why that happened. But let's just say on the surface, it didn't look like that was in any way my fault. What is my fault if I decide to interpret that as I'm helpless, I have no control, nothing, and yet I'm still standing here, still speaking, you know, I'm still able to survive. So that situation, I could either allow it to make me grow, or I could say, damn, that's so messed up. All this shit always happens to me. All this shit always happens to me. One person takes all those experiences and just becomes an absolute a leader, a man that you'd follow into battle, a woman that you would be the mother of your kids, right? A straight up empowered leader that you're like, man, she can take a licking and keep on ticking. You know what I mean? Like nothing stops her. And it's like there's safety, immense safety in surrounding yourself with people that you know, no matter how bad shit gets, they ain't giving up, and they're not gonna let it crush their spirit. They're gonna grow, they're gonna evolve, and they're gonna keep going. And like I just feel like it's kind of a mind fuck to be like, wait a minute, everything's my fault. That was my fault. That was my fault. And it's like, yes, everything is your fault because we are all autonomous, free individuals who can choose how we direct our thoughts, how we tell stories to ourselves, and what day-to-day actions we do to either grow or to stagnate.
Well, yeah, I want to add some caveats there because I've definitely, you know, really contemplated this scenario before, and you know, where are those lines? Where do I end? Where does the world begin? All sort of things. So, you know, it's important to kind of balance. I completely agree with what you're saying, but then also you have to consider that the person who robbed you is also a free individual who can make good or bad choices, such as, you know, stealing, things like that. And that is on them. They're solely responsible for their actions, as you are solely responsible for your actions. So you are responsible in that, you know, you chose to be there. Sure, it was the wrong place at the wrong time. You didn't know any better, but there's partial responsibility simply because you walked into that alleyway or wherever it happened. You also can think ahead about what is your preparedness. Do you carry a weapon? Like, are you prepared for those kind of scenarios? And then if you end up getting hurt, or, you know, there's nothing you can do about it, well, what could have I done to avoid being the victim that I was in that situation? Like, so it is kind of a shared thing. You know, for me, like, I was bullied a lot in school, and, you know, in no way is it excusable to bully somebody, especially, you know, a little nerdy kid like I was, you know, a little scrawny white kid. But at the same time, I took as just as much abuse as I tolerated, because at any time I could have chosen to stand up for myself, and even if I got my ass kicked badly for it, that would have sent a message that I guarantee would have at least you know, been a pretty big deterrent from that sort of thing continuing on. So I do accept responsibility for that aspect of it. They're still their own person. They made the choice to violate somebody, and that's their karma too. And that's not my responsibility, but I own which shit is mine as well. And that's kind of where I like to draw the line in between there.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
And then, of course, yes,
like,
you do have control over the narrative as far as how you interpret. So what happened, and you know, that is set in stone. It happened exactly how it happened, but then you can choose how you interpret that. And then, like you said, you can choose to say, oh, I was just a victim, this horrible thing happened. Or you can say, what can I learn from this? How can I use this bad experience to grow into something stronger, more prepared, more self-capable, and able to defend myself, whatever, you know, that means.
Yeah. So. Well, like to get a little philosophical, that, like, there's this book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Have y'all ever heard of it?
I have not.
Okay, awesome. So this was a well-known, famous psychiatrist in Germany who was Jewish around World War II. And this guy was like, when all of his peers were taking flight and going to, getting out of there while the Nazi Germany was getting crazier and crazier, he was like, I'm Viktor Frankl, man. This is the same dude who like implemented school programs that stopped suicide epidemics in his country and all these things he did. He was like beloved by the country, or so he thought. And he was like, I don't need to leave here. I'm not gonna leave my people. Well, before he knew it, it was too late, and his entire family had been killed, and he was put in Auschwitz, the worst of the worst, right? Of concentration camps. And he was one of the very few people who was able to take really detailed notes. He would hide little pieces of paper, sometimes just using his mind. And he never stopped being a psychiatrist. And he sat there and he watched all of the people who survived and those didn't. And he started to notice this really like uncanny pattern between those who survived and those who did not. And he was in it for years. So it's like he got to see all these people die and all these people live, more dying than living. And he started to notice that all of the people who stayed alive, with the exception of those who were forcibly killed, but those who just survived the brutality of it all, right? Survived the hunger, survived all that. They all had a strong meaning behind the suffering, right? They all create a story. I'm going to make it through this so that I can tell the whole world what went down here so that this never happens again, or so that the dangers of racism can be exposed. Then another person might be like, I believe that my wife and child are still out there, right? I have no evidence that shows me that they're not, and I choose to believe that they are still there, and I got to survive for them because one day we're going to get reunited, right? Lots of different meanings. Viktor Frankl was that, one day I'm going to tell this story to the world. Sure enough, he ended up telling it to millions of millions. But it was like that one thing of having a strong meaning behind the suffering, literally was the difference between them living and dying. And I find it like everything, man, can be, you can find positive meaning in everything because you decide meaning. Nobody decides it for you. It's 100% your choice. So yeah, it helps to have good people around you that can like show you fresh perspectives. That's why I surround myself with people like both you, all of my friends. It's like people that challenge my perspectives and say, hey, what about this? What about this? And it's like, I always find a way to find powerful meaning in everything. Every little thing, man. Like, I'll give you an example. We had a little bit of trouble getting the Zoom set up, right? I sat there and I watched for maybe like a split second, like some little agitation in my body. And I've trained myself to find meaning in the resistance, right? That always comes up. Technology will throw you all kinds of resistance, right? I've been through so much of it. I've trained myself to be like, oh, awesome. It's a chance to take presence, take a breath, get in my heart, feel gratitude that I'm talking to two brothers. And it's like, that's the meaning I've developed. Whereas another person might be like, fuck, man, like, gosh, man, what's wrong? It's like, it's meaning is everything. And I'm a big believer in that.
What a lot of that brought up for me is, especially in the extreme ownership, to me, that's really stepping into the mindset of the spiritual warrior. In the mythology, one of the things we like to reference and talk about is Odin when he hung himself on the Yggdrasil. So he hung himself there for 9 days and 9 nights as a way of seeking knowledge, and it's through that he found the runes. But he didn't ask anyone else to do that for him. He took, full responsibility for sacrificing himself unto himself, fearlessly, no matter, what the consequences. And we could really see that in the mindset of, sorry, I lost it for a second. We really see that in the mindset of the Germanic tribes in general, the Norse people, that they very much had that warrior mindset of going out and, needing to just conquer life. Because, not only were, they weren't just these ruthless barbarians that, history has portrayed them to be, but, very amazing, merchants and travelers that made it, all over the world in a time, with technology that was so far advanced of anyone else at the time. But that mindset that it takes to just take, full responsibility for your action and to fearlessly go after whatever that goal is, is really what the mindset of the spiritual warrior is all about. So that's what that really brought up for me there.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I have a question for you. Unless
Yes.
Logan, did you have anything to say on what Brian just said?
No. What's your question?
Okay, cool. So the question is, so I started researching some of these, like the Germanic tribes and like the Vikings and all that lineage, and I found some examples of, like, certainly before Christianity became a thing, there was like what many would maybe call like magic or black magic or the occult or paganism or whatever, things that have become to have negative connotation, at least in like a Western Christianized kind of country. But as I've grown more and more into my power, my experimentation, I've gone deeper into things like sex magic, intense breath work, high emotional states, psychedelics, right? And I was reading some evidence that they actually had these people in those times. There was people that did sex magic. They did like stuff that worked with the environment, with the atmosphere, and it was like way ahead of its time, because that's not even technology on like this phone is the technology. That's like a fucking spiritual technology that
you are the technology.
Your body.
You are technology, yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's something that definitely, as I said before, our ancestors were very much displayed, because history is written by the victor, and the Christians were the victor, and they very much have made it, a goal to make our ancestors seem like just these primitive barbarians that were just committing, human sacrifice and doing all these things, when that's far from the case. I mean, there's so much, and this is a huge kind of subject in itself, but there's so much evidence to the contrary that, not only just during the Viking era, but especially before that, very advanced civilization, not in the sense that they were creating large cities or anything, but in the sense of how they operated with themselves, and especially on the spiritual plane. There was definitely in the Germanic tribes, I think this is a very interesting thing that we don't see reflected in a lot of others. There were two magical practices, essentially. One known as Seidr, which is it's more like the sacred feminine, the channeling, listening to the gods, getting messages, going into trance-like states, things like that. And then there's Galdr, which it means to chant, but that's more of like what the wizard would be. It's more learning the science of how things work. Seidr, for the most part, was practiced by women, and Galdr, for the most part, being practiced by men, with obviously some flow and mixture in between. So I find it very interesting that there was definitely, different magical practices, tapping into the fullness of each of the sacred energies. That there so much knowledge that was there. I mean, even if you just look at, the Aeshelmer, the Helm of All, and the runes behind me, there's so much esoteric depth and truth in the way you can use these together. I mean, I could go on for hours on how to use these to start specifically working with yourself and developing ritual and discovering things about, not only yourself but the world around you. So I definitely think there's a lot of lost knowledge there that we can be tapping into, which I'll stop my ramble there, because obviously this is something I could go on for a minute about.
Yeah, great question, Ryan. I mean, you definitely, what you're picking up on there is very intuitively, there's a whole rabbit hole there, man, that goes deep.
Yeah, absolutely.
And magic is a very real thing, and it is a science. And the body is the technology. I mean, there is no separation here. These are all just kind of smoke and mirrors, kind of set up by the media and the establishment to kind of make it seem like it's all a bunch of Harry Potter shit, or like there's some separation between the real world and magic, you know, but there really isn't. It's all one thing. And these are based on laws of nature that are hidden or occult. That's what occult actually means, is not available to be seen, yet are instantly available to anyone who actually understands it or can discover those things and then use them in alignment to their particular will. Whether that be a positive or negative intention is completely up to them. But just like, you know, just like any other tool, it's neutral until it's used or applied.
Yeah.
And what this? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, like, you know, this is why I don't know if you guys ever get into, like, you know, futurists or looking at AI or technology, but there, you want to talk about a rabbit hole, man. Like, there's you know, there's two different proposals, but one of them is the Doomsday proposal. Elon Musk has been a big champion of this. I believe Kurzweil as well. Talked about how, like, AI could very well, artificial intelligence is on a course now where it could eventually decide that we humans were inferior or we were not as effective as them, and could essentially mutually assured destruction, right? The machines take over. And this isn't just like sci-fi fantasy. There's a lot of really solid science behind how this could happen. But what I don't think that they oftentimes take into account is the human spirit, or the magical part of you that a machine does not have and cannot have, because it's
the divine
imagination.
It's the divine feminine is really what it is.
Yeah.
That's what the Matrix is all about. The machines is that it's just a left brain, mechanical, linear, logical, you know, computing brain power without the heart-based intelligence, the care. And that's why humans win out in that, because of this, because of the compassion and the human hope, you know, the human spirit. Those are the things that the machines can never, you know, contend with, essentially.
What this is bringing up for me here is that we mentioned that, you know, we are the technology, and that's really tying into this energy of the Aquarian age. You know, Aquarius is also known as the air magician. So, you know, it's all about using, you know, empowered individuals being sovereign in themselves, building community and trying to raise that. And it deals with technology a lot. But it's also about reminding us that we are the technology and awakening within ourselves and our abilities that we have. So I think it's very kind of interesting that, you know, this is something that we see a lot of people experiencing and expressing, that they're, you know, waking up to abilities or finding parts of themselves that they, you know, may not have known were there.
Right. And I think, you know, to tie this back to like our main theme here too, is in what state is the imagination, the right brain, most activated? When you're in a flow state of complete and intense presence in the now. I mean, Ryan, I know you can really go on about some flow state stuff. I mean, you misfits, man, y'all are some fucking wizards in your own right when it comes to that stuff. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's, I think that talking about flow states, man, that is, I mean, Stephen Kotler, the guy who wrote Rise of Superman, epic book. If you haven't got a chance to read it, I highly recommend it. But he dove deep into flow states, and he actually believes that the flow state is the only thing that will reverse what most could agree environmentally we're on a downswing, right? Like, I mean, I saw this picture, two really disturbing pictures the other day. One was in I believe Indonesia, with this really epic wave. It was beautiful, pristine, everything except for the wave was a plastic wave. There was all kinds of trash and plastic and just garbage in this perfect wave. And then I saw another one where the tides had formed at like a South African port, and as far as the eye could see, miles, you couldn't even see the water. There was so much plastic and so much shit, so much garbage in the water. And it's like, dude, like at that pace, we are on a destructive path. We've completely lost touch with nature, with paganism, right? With like
absolutely.
And
Yes.
Kotler believes that the only way to return to harmony and to an intelligence that's deeper than our mind is flow states. And there's lots of ways to do flow states, right? Meditation,
Right.
breath work, you know, intense enjoyment of whatever you're doing.
Right.
He's like, man, it's back to that one saying that's like, the world doesn't need more people. I forget the exact saying, but the world doesn't need more people doing shit. It needs more people coming alive, right? We need less do-gooders. And I'm guilty of this, right? Trying to do as much good as I can, you know, like, it's like the world needs less do-gooders and needs more people coming the fuck alive and loving the shit out of where they're at in a way that's in harmony, and hopefully that wisdom, that divine feminine, the
It's the
plant,
care, the heart-based. It's the care. When you give a shit about the right things, about the planet, about each other, you can't help but want to take action on that and start trying to fix things and enact more justice and balance and harmony into things. It's a natural, you know, that care is what, you know, moves you to act.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, what that flow state really reminds me of, you know, what we refer to a lot of times, you know, Logan and I like jokingly refer to as, you know, blowing our Wyrd, which is a reference to, you know, the name of Odin or Woden, which Wyrd, which is being in the fury or the state of self-awareness, that you're just fully immense in that now of gaining.
That's where we get the word whoa. Like when you say whoa, you're overcome with the present moment of just the awe of the everything.
And then, you know, in just means made of. So Woden, he is the one who's made of the fury of self-awareness. So, you know, when we get into that flow state, we really like to kind of, you know, jokingly, you know, call it, you know, getting our woads blown there. Definitely, you know, bring a little comedy into it. But you know, I think that's really useful too for getting into a flow state like that, is being able to tap into humor. I think it's such an amazing tool that is so overlooked in its power of how it can really help us, you know, come into the present moment of the now.
In fact, think about this. People's favorite form of comedy, and in my opinion, the most effective and potent form, is improv. Like all the best movies like Anchorman and stuff, the movie's only half scripted. The rest is all just those guys being insanely funny in the moment. That's where improv comes from, is that present moment, complete flow state of just like tapping into that, where you get your own ego out of the way and you're just like completely fearless to express your truest self in that moment.
Yeah, I love that.
Same with me when I pick up my instrument, that I'm not sitting there, you know, thinking about, you know, intellectualizing all the scales and, you know, how I look, you know, I mean, of course, a little bit of that, but essentially I try to turn all that shit off, and I just play right from the heart. Like, what note do I want to hear right the fuck now? And then I play that note, and I'm like, yes, feel it. I'm playing it to myself. I'm playing guitar for myself first, and then that extends outwards.
Nice.
Yeah. What that brings up for me too is like, really, you know, like, let's take a moment to reflect on like how much of a present the now is, you know, because, you know, I like to think of this as, you know, if you think about, you know, all just the little events, the little things in your life that have led you on the path that you've created, you know, we're the accumulation of all our ancestors and all those tiny little choices and those big choices, and all those things eventually led to, you know, you existing. I mean, what an amazing kind of gift to reflect on that. So to not want to be present in the now and to kind of stay stuck in the past as a victim, or, you know, always stuck in the future, you know, trying to create a dream, but then never taking action towards achieving it, you know, you're really not only you're not honoring and respecting yourself, but I think you're kind of not honoring and respecting, you know, all those choices of, you know, your ancestors that have helped, you know, bring you into creation, into being.
Yeah, man. The whole connection with my ancestors, that I feel like is like gonna be my next evolution, because I know very little about my ancestors. I know very little about my DNA, my background, things like that. And you know, I if I'm really being honest, I think that a part of me has allowed culture to make me feel shame for being a white person, for, you know,
Germanic, yeah.
Yeah, all that. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
as I've grown into my own thinking, it's like, and gotten to know just the little I do know about the different tribes, it's like, dude, when you get to the core of it, like, so many tribes function so similar to each other. And like, I want to connect to those ancestors, the ones that were in tune with the land, the ones that were,
Yes,
you know, are still there. And the one experience I do have with that is, so I'm a big advocate of the plant medicine iboga, right? A lot of people don't know what it is, but it's an African root that comes from Gabon, and it's one of the most potent psychedelics on the planet. I mean, you eat it and you're tripping for 40 hours, right? But during my last journey, I was in between these profound vision states, right? Your eyes are closed, your body's paralyzed, you can't move, you're in this insane journey.
Completely
yeah,
disembodied at that point.
Yeah. And what would happen to me is I would flash these different scenes. I'd travel to different spaces. Sometimes I'd travel back to my childhood and I'd see my little child self, man. I'd pick him up and have conversations with him. I'd hold him. I'd love on him, all the way to going to my, you know, close childhood friend and watching him kill himself, right? I watched him create the noose. I watched him write the letter. Like, I'll go through all these scenes, whether or not I was traveling through time or whether or not I was traveling through my subconscious, doesn't matter. But the point of it is that in between traveling to these scenes, or these really incredible places, sometimes challenging places, I'd be in this like dark space, and I'd be surrounded by what felt like hundreds, if not thousands, of beings, and I couldn't really make out their faces, but I could feel them really strong. I could see their kind of outlines, and they would be like cheering for me every time I'd be about to go into another vision, another, you know, mental battle. They'd be cheering for me, and they'd be like, "You're doing it, Ryan. We love you. We got your back. Like, we're here for you." Like, just deafening cheers. And I'd be like, and the way that I interpret that when I kind of came to, I was like, holy fuck, man. Like, that had to have been my guides. It had to have been my ancestors. It had to have been my angels. It was some force that seemed to know me intimately, and there was hundreds of them. And it was like, now I take that with me all the time. I mean, anytime. I was just in a sweat lodge last week, and it was a really intense Native American one where they cooked the shit out of you, man. I was freaking out, panicking, right? Slapping myself with sagebrush to try and like deal with the fear that was just coursing throughout my body. And then I just start praying to my ancestors, to my guides, give me strength, like, be there for me. Let me channel like that ancient warrior shit, you know? And suddenly I'm fucking good, man. And I could sit in that damn sauna all night if I had to, you know? It's like,
yeah,
call on those ancestors.
Absolutely. Specifically, one of the ways we teach, and you can try this, but on the Helm of Ba, this represents, you know, Midgard and the 9 worlds of Norse mythology. In the realm correlating with the Northwest, that's known as Alfheim, and this is the realm of our ascended masters, our ancestors, the ones that have really spent time perfecting themselves. And then, you know, so anytime you're looking for that guidance, you can face Northwest and just kind of sit and listen. I find it's really useful to even incorporate it into a daily practice. So, you know, for anybody listening, you know, that's definitely something to try for sure.
Yeah, that sounds awesome, man. I definitely want to keep working with you more and learning some of this stuff, man, because it's powerful stuff, dude.
There's so much there in our tradition that, and it's so overlooked. Like I said, it's, you know, just kind of put off as these, you know, they were just these barbarians that only cared about, you know, slaughtering and killing Christians and things like that. And that's just not the case at all. There's so much wisdom and depth and very fucking rich tradition there to tap into. I mean, and I found, you know, in my personal experiences, as well as others I talked to, that when working with the archetypes, the gods of the pantheon, they're very, very personal and upfront, very much like family, but very intense, very fiery. You know, it's such a beautiful tradition, and that was really where I found my path is when I started finding my ancestral lineage and delving into that. Just everything started opening up for me, and all the little pieces I had been gathering started clicking and just making sense. Definitely encourage everyone to go after whatever their, ancestral lineage is, and look into it, because there's a connection there. There's an energetic charge built up with all that psychic energy, with all that care that, your ancestors have been practicing some of these belief systems for, possibly even, tens of thousands of years. That's a huge charge that's there to be tapped into, and you just have to get back before, we got cut off from ourselves and from nature.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of ways you can do that. And for me lately, what I've been doing is, because I connect so deeply with music, and music really moves me and breaks up stagnation and really brings things to the surface. So for me, I've been really like getting more into traditional Northern European music, specifically like Celtic style music and Nordic style music. And just yesterday I was listening to some of that stuff, dude, and I was literally brought to tears multiple times, because the sound of those instruments, the melodies, the voices, I literally felt like I was home, like a feeling of home that I've never felt in my entire life, no matter where I lived or where I was in the world. It was such a familiar, safe, warm, inviting emotion that just came over me from the very depths of my fucking being, and it was such a beautiful and moving experience, man. And I'm definitely trying to tap into that as much as possible, because I think there's really something to that. I think the ancestors know that I'm using music to try to connect to them, and that's them almost kind of reaching out and touching me and just like embracing me as their long lost prodigal son sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Your DNA is getting activated, man. You have to send me some of those tracks, bro.
Oh, hell yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's definitely a great selection of, there's a whole genre out there of just amazing music like that, for sure.
I actually just found a new band yesterday. I don't know if I can, I think they're called Faun, Faun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've sent you some of their videos before. I really like that band a lot.
Oh, yeah. Man, that's good stuff, dude.
Yeah, gets you going.
So, I have a question for you guys. What's one way you recommend somebody who doesn't, what's kind of the first step towards reconnecting with your lineage, with your ancestors, with your tribe? It feels like it can be a kind of monumental task. I felt that way for sure. So what's like maybe the very beginning step, and maybe one more after that?
So I would say, first off, listen. Get into that inner knowing. Like I said, facing northwest and just kind of asking for that guidance can be a great way to get guidance. If you, look at, a certain, say, pantheon or some gods or tradition, and you're feeling drawn towards it or called to work with it, follow that. And usually whenever you follow those intuitively, if you then go and kind of, on the more logical side, do some research, you could do a DNA test, things like that. A lot of times you'll be able to start confirming things, and, all these pieces of the puzzle will start coming together. But definitely go after, whatever feels intuitive, develop your own connection too, because, if you look at anybody's ancestors, when you go back before monotheism and things came in, everybody was an animist or, practiced some kind of polytheistic belief system.
Yeah.
And it's the understanding and the worship and being in the presence of nature. So you can always start by just going back to that, just going to nature and start getting out there and having that same experience that, our ancestors had, and things will start coming to you. And then, on the flip side of that, start, trying to do as much research as you can, maybe looking into, when your family might have, migrated somewhere, or, looking at a DNA test or things like that. So those are the two places I would start.
Cool.
I second that.
So great. Another big point that, came up for me here is, getting into the now and its connection with taking back your sovereignty and your responsibility for, yourself and your actions and the world that you're creating. through those. And that if you really truly want to be a sovereign, free human being, you have to take that responsibility of stepping back into the now, into the present, where you can take that full responsibility for your actions and the choices that you're making, and both that past that you're weaving and the future that you're going to be creating. So I think those are two things that we could really look at here, is how much sovereignty and stepping back into accepting the responsibility of the present, of the now, go hand in hand.
Yeah, it's really sort of just the inverse of that whole victim mindset thing that we opened up with. Is this would be the positive form of that, of
Right.
stepping out of that and moving into this, is like truly owning, all of your choices, your responsibility, and your ability to create things from the now. This is the, tying back to the trivium as well, is like the now moment is when we are weaving into that web of Wyrd, that which is our fate and our destiny and our karma. If we're, and that's karma, by the way, tends to get kind of a bad rap. It's like, well, karma's a bitch. Well, only if you're a bitch. Really, karma is a mirror. What karma is a mirror. It's reflecting back to your own soul, your own heart. So, karma can very much be just as much positive as it is negative, and that is entirely up to you.
Earlier in another when we were kind of talking before, Logan, you had mentioned the allegory of the two thieves. Would you kind of like to delve into that one here and introduce that for people who may not be familiar with it?
Yes. So of course, this is in no way a plug or promotion of Christianity, but if you can look at some of the imagery in like the crucifixion, allegorically, Jesus was crucified between two thieves, and that could represent the past and the future. So essentially, if the present is the gift, it's the present, it's the now, then that gift can be stolen from you. And that can, essentially is self-inflicted for the most part. When you're trapped in that left brain modality, what that leads to, instead of that now, that flow state, that we were talking about, Ryan, that gives way to anxiety and depression, which, anxiety is fear of the future, depression is regret from the past, generally speaking. And those are things that rob you of the gift of now, where, and think about having both of those is coming from a very disempowered mindset. Anxiety is a fear that I don't have the power to face what's coming. Whatever's coming is bigger than me, and I'm just going to get crushed under it, disempowered, and then depression or regret, or however you want to look at that, is a disempowerment of doing that transmutation of, yes, what happened. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to take that and move forward, learn from it, and don't make the same mistakes that you have before? That's what it really means to take your power back. And all of that spearheads in the present moment. It's like that razor blade cutting through time at every moment.
Yeah.
So
nice.
Good stuff.
So Ryan, a question that we had for you was, what has, maybe what are some of the benefits that you've maybe experienced from being able to tap into being weird, being a little, strange, or what most people, they see you stepping into that present moment and going after doing something that they would just like, well, that's not, that's kind of crazy, that's not how you're supposed to do things. And, whenever you kind of step into that place of taking that fearless action, and people may seem it as a little strange, like what are the benefits from kind of being in that state of being that you found?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, I'll give you a perfect example, like what I was just doing, all right? I'll walk around like this with my arms fully open. I'll have my fingers be wide. I'll have my mouth, I'll be breathing. I'll do shit like that while I'm standing in line at a coffee shop or while I'm in the airport. I'll start doing intense breath work. And actually one time I thought I maybe was going to get kicked off the plane because a flight attendant, this old really out of shape dude in his 50s was like telling me that I couldn't do breath work because it was like, you know, I forget his logic, but it was like he was scaring people, or which I was cool with all my neighbors, right? I was scaring him, and he was like didn't know what it was, so I got in a little bit of a duel with him. I was like, you're not gonna tell me I can't breathe on the fucking plane, buddy. So
yeah,
one of those moments that I tapped into my heart and realized like he doesn't, you know, forgive them because he does not what he does, right? But
he's just projecting.
Yeah, you know, and if I was to be like to allow him, and he could be a you know, a metaphor for society, right? If I were to allow him to stop what my heart wanted to do, what I know to be amazing for me, what I know to be only
empowering,
considered weird because of lost art, but if I were to allow him to determine what is good for me, which is essentially whenever we say that like I want to do something but it's weird, so I'm not going to do it even though I want to, we're essentially we're a victim because you're giving your control away to culture, to society, and to other people, and you're saying, hey, I don't actually know what's best for me. I'm too afraid to like search in my own heart. I'm too afraid to be wrong. So please tell me how I need to act, and that way I can be accepted and not to
you are gaslighting yourself.
Yeah,
that's what you're doing. You're letting society gaslight you.
Beautiful answer, man. I love that.
I had something too that I want to riff on. In fact, I think it's very like serendipitous that this kind of revelation came to me recently as we were talking about this weird word and contemplating, well, what does that really mean? Because there's kind of two different connotations to it, where it depends on who you ask. There's two different ways you can interpret this concept of weird. So, you know, because, you know, like, you've heard it where like, is this guy, like, is he a good weird or a bad weird? You know, like which one is it, right? So there's the bad weird is where somebody is kind of out of alignment with kind of what's natural, right? You can almost kind of see it as a parallel of normal. Normal has also a good and bad. Like if I have a tumor on my arm, that's not normal, right? And that's like a bad kind of normal, where it's like, well, something's off here. Like this is not the objective goodness and harmony with nature. Like something is obviously at a disconnect there. Or you can see it as, well, society itself has become so far separated and diverged from what is actually objectively good and in harmony with nature, that it had to take on its whole new meaning. So the irony here is that in this day and age, doing something that is actually in harmony is seen as so outlandish, as viewed as a negative thing, and therefore seen weird, almost as if it's like unhealthy or just like, oh, like it's very off-putting to people, because that's a testament to how far we've become separated from, like, you know, what is actually good and in alignment with the universe, essentially. So, you know, that, like, you know, you can look at weird those two different ways. Are you being weird, like doing what is your soul's truest desire, which can never go wrong because it's truly coming from the depths of who you truly are and who you, not from who you aren't? Or is it weird as in, like, you know, usually it's coming from some kind of place of like a subconscious trauma or something. Like if somebody's really socially weird, it's usually because they've been really traumatized and they don't know how to act around people or something. So like kind of looking at those, what's driving those two things, you know, the motivations behind them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely a good point to add in there. Another thing I kind of wanted to point out here, you know, is that you can't ever put off fixing yourself until tomorrow. Because when you realize that everything is verdandi, it's always the ever becoming present moment. If you ever want to fix yourself, you have to do it in the now.
Right.
Because tomorrow is just, it's not there. It doesn't exist, because even when it comes, you're going to be experiencing it as the now. So when you want to make that growth, you have to start taking action in that now. You really got to start stepping into that radical, you know, responsibility and self-ownership towards things.
Right. which real quick, you know, I actually wanted to add this as we were speaking earlier about the two thieves. You know, we're trying to like really come out of like avoiding black and white thinking. And so this would be an example of like where sometimes people overstress the present to the point where they're saying that anything else is somehow less spiritual or bad. Look, you know, taking those lessons from the past so you can say, okay, let's look at this experience here, analyze what happened, see the chain of events and the causal factors from that, and say, well, if I didn't want this outcome, here's how I could have done it differently or taken part in it and steered the outcome differently. So I can take that knowledge and move forward into the future with that. And at the same time, of course, you want to look at the future as well, make plans, you know, look at the big picture of this, what is the story arc of your life? You know, you're the director of your own life movie. You want to see like, where's this heading? Where am I going? Is this in alignment? You know, and like, if I continue to make these choices, what's going to happen? Maybe I should, you know, steer course from here. Those things are good, and that is a useful tool that the intellect can provide for you. The problem isn't in those things inherently. It's when you become obsessed with them and you can't see anything outside of it, where you're always living in anxiety about, oh, what if this, and what happens if that, or like, oh, I should have done that. That's the part where it's becoming neurotic and like unhealthy for you. So you have to find that balance in between, you know. And I just wanted to throw that in there to kind of caveat that, again, that black and white thinking that gets kind of thrown around a bit too much.
Yeah, what that brings up for me too is how, you know, when you're staying stuck in, you know, the past or staying stuck, you know, in the future, you know, only dreaming, you know, that's where you can become stagnant. But when you're stepping into that now, you're really breaking that stagnation, because it's Verdandi, it's the ever becoming present moment. So it's always evolving. So when you can become present in that, you automatically get yourself out of that stagnation.
It's flowing because it's current.
Yeah, nice. Yes. I like it. I like it. Awesome. Wonderful. Well, you know, I think this has been a, you know, a really great, you know, talk here, Ryan. We love obviously having you on. Definitely have to do it again. Do you want to kind of let people know where to find you? Maybe, you know, some exciting things that you're working on, kind of any projects you want to get people, get the word out there about?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the very first one that comes to heart is the three of us out in Sequoia next year, baby. Come on.
Hey. Yeah, we actually have not you know, talked too much about that publicly, but not that I have you know, any problem with that, but you know, yeah, we are planning. We're planning some real life events that people can come and be a part of and experience, you know, remembering the tribe and learning life-changing knowledge and tools and healing techniques. I mean, this is really going to be some next level shit. So, you know, I encourage everyone to definitely stay tuned and stay with us on this journey with the Wizard Factory, because it's going to be some epic shit going down. And so, yeah, to continue that, you know, we have asked Ryan to join and be part of our team for, you know, facilitating that very first event at least. No idea what, you know, the future after that would hold, but we will be collaborating and making sure that event is going to bring the most value, you know, as possible to the people that are, you know, in attendance there. So
absolutely, it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
So
what else you got,
brother? Yeah.
Yeah, so I have a lot of things always going on. The probably the most current one is the beginning of August. I'm doing a 3 to 5 day online challenge. It's gonna be completely free. We're gonna be tapping into. It's gonna be a men's only group, and we're gonna be tapping into things like purpose, being present with your body, learning how to be weird and still love the fuck out of yourself, anyways. And we're going to have people like Elliot Hulse, JP Sears, Dan Wiseman, like squad's going to be on there. So that's probably the biggest thing right now. And people could just follow me on Instagram, Ryan_the_Lionheart, or hit me up on Facebook, just my name, Ryan Bowditch.
Yeah. we got all
Okay.
those links down there in the description. So if you guys want to
Awesome.
follow Ryan and his stuff, it's right there for you. So
And definitely recommend for sure, because I mean the content that you, as well as with the whole Mystic Misfit crew, you guys put out excellent content, a lot of great material, very inspirational and very heart based too. You guys have a great chemistry together, and I definitely recommend people check out your guys' channel for sure.
Yeah,
Totally.
thank you, man.
right
No
on.
problem.
All
Awesome.
right,
Well,
well,
again, yeah.
I guess this is going to wrap up tonight's episode. So, thanks everyone for watching. Of course, as always, if you appreciate the content, please, take that half a second to like the video so that we continue to grow as a channel and more people can, receive the empowering message that we're trying to spread. Subscribe and hit the notifications so that you see when our new episodes post every Friday night. And as always, thank you for watching. And until then, be empowered, inspired, and encouraged.